Welcome to another episode of the Leading Life Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Zook, and this is where we say the quiet parts out loud about being better leaders. This is for people who want to lead better with clarity, humility, and purpose. So here we go. Right now, on today's episode, we're going to learn 10 lessons from the book Tools of Titans. You are tuned into the Leading Life Podcast, where we talk about what it takes to grow, lead, and live with purpose. I'm your host, Andy Zook, and each episode is designed to give you simple, real-world tools to help you show up as your best self in work and in life. And I started this podcast because I care deeply about the people who work for us and the leaders responsible for them. Everything I share comes from my 35 years of leading, coaching, mentoring, and motivating teams. And why this episode matters to you is that I wanted to review what I learned from Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans, and how it can impact you as it did me. And so we're talking about how the world's highest performers actually live, how they protect their energy, and how they make decisions, and how we can apply that ourselves without burning out or losing what matters most. We're also going to take an insightful quiz at the end of the episode to give you an idea on your personal approach to success. There's no right or wrong answers. And I'm going to lead you through these 10 lessons that, again, impacted me. Thus, I think will impact you as well. All right, let's get into it. Lesson number 1, success leaves clues. Yeah, so one of the biggest ideas in the book Tools of Titans is simple. Success leaves clues. Tim Ferriss, the author, didn't just interview people to admire them. He studied them to learn their habits. Not their personality, not their charisma, but their actual behaviors. And here's the leadership takeaway. You don't need to reinvent yourself. You just need to borrow what is already working. Great leaders aren't guessing, they're modeling. And the best part, most of what works, honestly, it's boringly simple. Think of it this way. Success leaves clues means progress is rarely mysterious. It's more patterned. People who consistently win in health, wealth, and leadership or relationships tend to do a few simple things over and over again. They manage their time. They guard their energy. They seek feedback and stay consistent long after excitement fades. So instead of reinventing the wheel, you study what already works. You model proven behaviors and you adapt them to your life. Success isn't luck. It's just clues plus repetition. Okay, lesson number 2, how you start and end your day shapes your life. Yeah, because I think almost every high performer in the book had a morning routine and then an evening reflection. Nothing extreme, just purely intentional. Things like gratitude journaling, quiet thinking time, which is super impactful for me, light movement, exercise, and then asking better questions before they end their day. And here's the truth most people miss. Your life isn't shaped by big decisions. It's shaped by your bookends. So how you start your day and how you shut it down can be very important. So leaders who skip this routine can run reactive, and leaders who honor it will stay more grounded. And you know, for me, I started a morning ritual. Or when I did, I should say my days got about 75% better. I was more prepared for anything and calmer throughout the day. I worked in a much less reactive state, and then my personal happiness just skyrocketed because I felt I had way more control over my life. So getting up 2 hours earlier than I normally would, journaling, starting with some learning, maybe watching a YouTube video, and then hitting the gym. And that gym time to me is like super important for just thinking through things and planning my day. It just made a huge difference for me. So remember that. Starting your day with intention, having a ritual, and then ending it with one can be very impactful. All right. Lesson 3, fear setting beats goal setting. Yeah, I never thought I would say that on the podcast, but this might be the most powerful concept in the book. And why is we shouldn't be asking, what do we want? What do I want? That's what we always tend to do. Instead, ask, what am I afraid might happen? Or how bad would it really be if this happened or I did this? Or how would I recover if it did? So here's what matters. Most people aren't stuck because they lack ambition. They're stuck because their fear is undefined. And an unnamed fear will always feel bigger than it is. So remember, clarity shrinks fear, and then avoidance just keeps feeding it. So if you're hesitating on a decision right now, don't ask what you want. Ask what you're afraid of. This really worked for me with a difficult situation I had a couple of years ago at work, and I just wrote through all the scenarios, worst case scenarios, and it made the problem so much smaller. So when I handled it, I was super prepared, and everything came out way better than I thought it would. All right, lesson number 4, energy is the real currency. Yeah, I agree. Most consistent patterns across high performers tend to be that they protect their energy, not just their time. So they prioritize sleep, nutrition, movement, and mental boundaries, because most tired leaders will end up making decisions that are emotional, or they make short-term choices and then they can react defensively. So here's the reframe. Time management is overrated, but energy management is everything. So if your leadership starts to feel harder than it used to, this might be why. Tap into your energy. Lesson number 5, it's either a hell yes or a hell no. I love this because I think of this quite often whenever I'm making a decision. So many people in Tools of Titans follow one rule, hell yes or hell no. This isn't about being selfish, it's about being honest, because every yes will cost energy, focus, and presence. So saying no is not a rejection, it's just better self-respect. And the best leaders don't say yes to everything, they say yes to what matters. All right, lesson number 6, stoicism and mental toughness. So a lot of the Titans in the book practice forms of stoicism. And so that really just means you're going to focus on what you can control. You're going to visualize the worst case scenario to be prepared, and then choose voluntary discomfort. Why? Because resilience is trained, not inherited. So calm is a skill. Perspective is a practice. You don't rise to the level of the motivation around you. You fall to the level of your preparation. And you guys know I'm a huge fan of Ryan Holiday as well, another great author. I recommend him because he has an awesome YouTube channel and has written several books, especially Courage is Calling. That book really impacted me. His teaching centers around what we can learn from Marcus Aurelius, who was the Roman emperor and wrote Meditations. So definitely keep in mind that stoicism and mental toughness is going to make you better in not having to wait for motivation, but being more prepared as a leader. All right, lesson 7, money is meant to buy freedom. That's another quiet theme that runs throughout this book. The goal isn't wealth. The goal is optionality. The best performers don't chase stuff. They chase choice, autonomy, and most of all, meaningful work. Leadership here, it reminds you that money is not a tool. Freedom is the return. So if your definition of success doesn't include peace, you're paying way too much. And let me tell you, peace is everything. Money is meant to buy freedom. Lesson number 8, systems beat willpower. Yeah, every time. High performers don't rely on motivation. They build systems, rules, they put in place guardrails, and they establish strong routines because discipline can fade, but design will endure. So don't rely on how you feel. Build systems that carry you when you don't feel like it, because that happens to all of us. And daily systems are what actually will carry you forward. So systems remove the need to feel motivated because the decision has already been made for you. So you don't wake up asking if you'll train, if you'll write, if you'll save more money or reflect. You'll just follow the structure you've already built for yourself, like we talked about with a morning and evening routine. Discipline says try harder. Systems say make it easy to win. So over time, systems compound quietly, turning small, repeatable actions into identity level change. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to the strength of your systems in place. Lesson 9, relationships are the real multiplier. Yeah, I would bet almost everything on that because every Titan in that book talked about mentors and honest partners and deep relationships. Leadership isn't a solo sport. Life isn't either, because the strongest leaders invest in trust, repair, and presence, because success without connection is ultimately hollow. Person's success and the health of their relationships can often be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations they're willing to have. So remember that. Part of maintaining a relationship and having a real, authentic, deep relationship with people is having the conversations that can be uncomfortable, because those are the conversations that will ultimately create change thus strengthen your relationship. All right, lastly, lesson 10 is defining what enough is. What exactly is enough? You ever think about that? Because this may be the most important lesson of all. Without a definition of enough, success becomes like an endless striving, right? You're on this hamster wheel just going and going. So here's a question worth sitting with. What does enough look like now? Not 10 years ago. Defining what enough means is one of the most powerful clarity moves that you can make. Trust me, without it, you're always chasing a moving target, more money, more status, more approval, and you'll never really be satisfied. When you define enough, you will set a finish line for contentment, not ambition. This allows us to pursue growth from a place of purpose instead of fear, and success without constant comparison. Enough isn't settling. It's just you choosing your peace, alignment, and intentional living over this endless hunger. Leaders who define enough lead with peace, and those who don't lead from hunger. You know, one of my best friends and I talk a lot about when are we there? AKA, when do we have enough? When do we get there? Like, what's the ultimate arrival? And I said, I don't think we ever really arrive. I think we enjoy the journey along the way, and we embrace what's going well in our lives and work on the pieces that aren't. But I don't know if we ever just get to enough. And I don't even like to think of it that way. I just think of being happy with where you are and what you have. And that doesn't mean that you're not pushing forward for better. But I think people that just keep chasing better and better and better and better never really get there and end up even less happy than us that are embracing gratitude along the way, if that makes sense. All right, so next I'm going to ask you some questions in regards to the learnings in the book and where you land in your quest as a leader. So grab something to write on or your journal to write in, and then I want you to write A, B, or C after each number. So that will kind of help us get an idea at the end where you are. So question number one, it's 6 a.m. What is the first thing you do? A, you meditate, journal, and follow a strict mindfulness routine. B, you check your email and your to-do list to get a head start on the day. Or C, you quietly sip your coffee and ease into your morning at your own pace. All right, A, B, or C. Number two, how do you view your greatest personal weakness? A is a flaw that you need to hide or fix immediately. B is a unique trait that can potentially turn into a competitive advantage. Or C is something that doesn't really matter as long as I'm getting the work done. All right, number three, you are faced with a new opportunity that sounds okay, but it doesn't thrill you. So A, you say no immediately because it's not a hell yes. Or B, you say yes because you don't want to miss out on potential leads. Or C, think about it for a few days before you make a lukewarm decision. All right, number four, how do you handle a daunting 10-year goal? Why can't I achieve this in 6 months instead of a year? Or B, I create a detailed 10-year roadmap with quarterly milestones. Or C, I focus on the first small step and try not to look too far ahead. All right, 5, what is your primary relationship strategy? A, you go first, meaning you're the first one to smile and initiate a difficult conversation. B, wait for others to approach you so you can gauge the situation first. C, focus on your own work and assume good relationships will follow naturally. All right, number 6, when things go wrong or you face a major setback, your first thought is, good, this means I can learn X and improve Y. B, how did this happen and who's responsible? Or C, I need to take a break and regroup before I try again. Okay, number 7, how do you manage your daily decision fatigue? So A, automate the basics. Same breakfast, same clothes every day to save brain power for big tasks. B, I make a new list every morning of everything I need to decide. Or C, I'll just wing it and decide things as they come up. Okay, 8, which of these describes your creative process? A, I aim for 10 ideas a day, even if most of them are just crazy or ridiculous. B, I wait for a spark of inspiration before I start a major project. C, I look at what others in my field are doing and try to do it slightly better. Okay, number 9, your philosophy on discipline is best described as A, discipline equals freedom. B, discipline is a necessary evil to reach my goals. Or C, I prefer to stay flexible and avoid too much structure. All right, and our last one, when you are frustrated with a slow process, you remind yourself that A, achieving the extraordinary is a non-linear process, and I must embrace the plateau. B, I need to work harder and faster to get through the slump. Or C, maybe this isn't the right path for me if it's difficult. Okay, so looking at your scores, if you mostly wrote down A's, you really embody the Titan mindset. So you value systems over goals, prioritize mental clarity, and you use fear setting to turn obstacles into advantages. So like the highest performers in the book, you recognize that discipline is the foundation of your freedom. If you answered with mostly B's, you're still high octane, you're still a hustler, you have the drive of a world-class performer, but might be at risk of decision fatigue or sometimes burning out. So you're eager for growth, but you could benefit from narrowing your focus, remembering if it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no. All right, and then if you mostly answered C, that's okay. You're a practical realist. You prefer a balanced approach, and you avoid the extreme habits of billionaires. While this keeps you grounded, the lessons of Tools of Titan suggest you might be playing it too safe. So try going first in your relationships. Okay, so here's your call to arms for the episode. Ask yourself, instead of the typical questions, here's your call to arms for the episode. Ask yourself, what do I fear? What fear do I need to name? What is the fear that's holding me back, and what do I call it? What is it? Name it. What system would make my life easier? And then what does enough look like for this season? You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to choose intentionally, because the best leaders don't chase more, they design better. And that's the lessons from Tools for Titans. I hope it helped. It's a great book. I highly recommend you get it. I just wanted to kind of narrow it down to 10 lessons that I think we can all learn from and put into practice. That's my episode. I hope this impacted you for the better. And if it did, please leave me a rating or review and hit subscribe so you won't miss another episode of the Leading Life podcast. And if this episode inspired you, share it with another leader who needs to hear it. And remember, the world gets better when we leaders get better. So until next time, I want you to lead on with purpose, live with intention, and keep becoming who you were meant to be. But most importantly, go out and be the hero of somebody's story today. All right? I'll talk to you on the next episode. Thanks for listening again. Appreciate you. Take care. Lead on.